Another thing people can type in the chat is what you want to talk about today. If you have like a book you're working on or an idea, anything, I'd love to hear what everyone's working on.
Unknown
Just in the
caller.
Well, I'm going to give a once over to the Marco Polo book. I want to go through it one time and I've grown so much and my tools are so much greater. I want to go through and give it a polish before I hand it over.
Great. Yeah, I love first novel. We love that. Very exciting.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, new marketing ideas. That's going to be the main topic of discussion today. So, yeah, how to market your book. So great. Yeah, pitching, lots of scripts, love it. Yeah, it's just exciting. Wow. Nice. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we're having a lot of, yeah, it's just starting. We started a bit early today, so people are just coming in now. Hello everyone. Welcome. Yeah, if you haven't already, we're just typing where we're from in the chat and also what ideas we're bringing today. But yeah.
Well, I had I belong to groups like the Mongolia Society and also and I'm hoping to have them give the book a feature through all the people that are interested. And also, I'm very honored that a previous ambassador to the United States from Mongolia offered, he's a historian and so is his wife. He's quite famous. And he offered to give it a review.
Oh, yeah,
Great.
that's exciting.
Yeah. He says, I'm the best in the West. It's a bit, it's a bit corny, but he's a poet. He's a wonderful man, and his wife is an excellent, excellent historian.
Amazing. Yeah, Diana is one of our authors, actually, for context for everyone else. So she's working on marketing her book, I guess, pretty in the early stages. But yeah, we're excited, yeah, to see some old faces, a lot of new faces, which is exciting. Um, but yeah, I'm
I'm,
gonna
I'm
start
trying.
introducing Ken and starting everything a bit slowly as we let people in. So, yeah, so let me spotlight me and Ken.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're today, and welcome everyone. So today, just wanted to let a little people know a little bit about Story Merchant as a whole. So we are primarily focusing on um, publishing as well as tidying up books and works that you already have. So our big branches are Story Merchant Books and the Writer's Lifeline. So Story Merchant Books is actually the imprint where you're able to publish your work once it's more fine-tuned, but the Writer's Lifeline is kind of the first step before publishing. So we help do coaching sessions depending on if you have ideas but don't know where to get started. We also have um, more of an analysis, a project launch analysis, if you have something finished and want more feedback on it. So we're kind of, yeah, talking about all of the knowledge that Ken specifically has acquired through this program. So specifically, we're going to talk about marketing for writers today. So if it's whether it's something finished or something you're working on for the near future, it is very important. So I will let Ken get started and talk about that.
Thank you, Charlotte. Welcome, everybody. Good to see familiar faces and new faces as well. Um, so let's talk about magic thinking for to begin with. Um, Writers are typically guilty of magic thinking, and I'm certainly no exception. I've spent a whole career magic thinking my way into the next step. And the example that I'm specifically want to focus on is the fact that most writers publish a book and expect something to happen right away. They expect to sell thousands of copies. They expect, all kinds of things to get hundreds of reviews. And, after a few weeks go by, they realize that their expectations are magical and not real. Uh, the sheer mass of people getting published makes it impossible for every book to immediately take off and sell thousands of copies and get thousands of reviews and so on. And today we're going to talk about getting real instead of hoping that magical thinking will take you where you want to go. And it's nothing wrong with magical thinking. It's just that if it doesn't work within a limited time, it's time to switch to realistic thinking. And but a lot of stuff happens because people do the magical thinking first. That's what gets them motivated to have the book up there. The book's not up on the internet. It's nowhere. And so your first step is huge, which is to get the book polished up to be a good calling card for your writing, and then to get it in front of the public so that things can happen, both magical things, serendipity happens all the time, and realistic things, which the American word for is marketing. We're living in a completely unique time, probably as unique as the year after Gutenberg invented his printing press, and suddenly books which numbered in the hundreds all over Europe overnight numbered in the thousands, and then within a few months, tens of thousands. And that was a major watershed in human history, to have the printed word available that you could take to your own comfortable chair and sit down and read, as opposed to having to go to a library and read it on scrolls. Needless to say, the world we're living in is kind of a shell-shocked repetition of that. It's a renaissance of massive communication and has bad stuff associated with it as well as good stuff. More books are published than ever before, which means that more good books are published than ever before. But it also means that more bad books are published than ever before. And in fact, Story Merchant Books began because Amazon invited us to become part of what they called a silver spoon relationship with them, because they knew that I had a reputation for putting good books into the world, and they were having a problem. They were living with their own mandate of no question refunds. And in the book part of their world, they were getting more and more requests for refunds for sloppy books that were really not well edited or well thought out or well presented, well published. And they wanted to have a few people out there to bring them books that they wouldn't have that problem with. We've never had that problem. We've now at this point published over 300 books, and we've never had one rejected by Amazon, taken down by Amazon because of complaints that the book wasn't a book, didn't look like a book, or talk like a book, or walk like a book. So we joined about 22 people who went to a webinar in New York to understand what our relationship with them would be like, which is basically having access to them 24 hours and being able to get their attention, despite the fact they were dealing with hundreds of thousands of books. And so we've had a good track record with them, and we publish only through Amazon. And we do that because we've tried everybody else. We worked with Apple, Barnes and Noble, 3 or 4 other companies, and discovered that none of them had their act together sufficiently to trust them to report properly and so on. We all have problems, in this world for the various pressures, mostly of numbers. But Amazon is the one that's most consistent. It also accounts for about 90% of all books sold on the internet. And my feeling is if somebody really, really wants to be published in another way, let's satisfy let's first exhaust the 90%. Let's
Yeah.
let's wait till you sold 1 million copies on Amazon and then talk about whether you really want to do that or not. So we have an exclusive relationship with them, and that means that they give our book special attention, and uh, it's all about an algorithm that is kind of their secret, which explains how books become bestsellers. And but it all goes back to the principle of visibility. And that's what the theme of my remarks today is all about is visibility. You've got to make yourself visible. You've got to make your books visible once you're up there. I mean, even, we sell books to publishers too, if they're big enough to take to traditional publishers. But those authors complain as badly as internet authors about no promotion from their publishers and
Absolutely.
and and bad editing and all kinds of other things um, because the publishers are swamped. They're in the middle of a transition that may not see them existing in 10 years. It's amazing to me that they've even stayed in existence as long as they have. Um, but uh, you when you publish with a traditional publisher, they take over the so-called marketing, even if they do nothing. And if the author is able to do some things on her or his own, uh, and they work, then they point it out to the publisher. Then the publisher might step in and start putting some effort into getting the book more visible. So it's kind of a level playing field in the sense that in the case of publishing directly, which most of you are involved in doing one way or the other, you maintain control over your visibility completely, and you don't have to wonder whether somebody else is going to make it visible or not. It's you're going to do it because you're the one who has the most to gain and lose. Um, yeah, as Linda Malcor, who's one of our clients, just posted here, her books through traditional publishers get no marketing except whatever she can do herself. And I can attest to that. I have published about, I think, 30 books of my own. And first half were published through traditional publishers and got almost zero marketing. And I had the rights revert on a number of them so that we could republish them. And I make more money obviously from a republished traditional book than I do from the actual traditional book itself, because we get a bigger share of the revenue that comes in. So traditional publishing is kind of the past. And if anyone really wants to wonder why is that, probably the root of the problem is that traditional publishers still to this day operate on what's called the consignment basis. And consignment means you send books to a bookstore, and if the bookstore sells the books, great. They send back the money to the publisher, and publisher shares it with the author. But they only have about 30 days to do that. At the end of 30 days, they get to send the books back
Right.
to the publisher. That's called consignment. We're sending you these 100 copies on consignment, meaning that all we're asking you for is space on your shelves. You don't have to pay anything unless you sell the books. And then if you don't sell them, send us back the ones that didn't sell, and we'll, deal with it from there. So let's say they send 100 copies of your book to a bookstore, and 60 days later, which is kind of the maximum amount that bookstore would keep the books, 60 days later, they've only sold 5. So they have to return 95 books to the publisher. at the publisher's expense.
At the
And
publisher.
as Catherine Clinch just pointed out, I was about to say anyway, um, it's too expensive to ship books, right? So the publishers say, do us a favor, just rip the covers off and send the covers back to us so we can count and make sure you're giving us a fair, return, and throw the rest of the book away. That system, which sounds medieval when I describe it, is actually still in effect today, with some variations that are making it easier. Most books, for example, are printed. Direct publishing is print on demand, meaning that we get your book up on the internet, somebody orders it, 3 days later they receive it because it was just printed in the last 3 days when the order was made. That's called print on demand. And in
Right.
the old days, what separated the traditional publishers from, direct publishers is that the traditional publishers did a run at the beginning where they did a press run, a print run, and they might print 20,000 copies of your book and then warehouse them somewhere and send them out to bookstores as they could. And now they don't do that anymore. Obviously, the warehousing was hugely expensive. And the fact that they're getting covers back in the mail instead of books that they sent is ridiculous. So they've now gone to print on demand. And thanks to the accelerating technology of printing, this is possible because printing only takes a couple of days in the world that we live in today. And they all go through a distributor named Ingram's, and we do too. And with Ingram's is the distributor that bookstores order from if they want to have a book in the store. So that's kind of an overview of the world. The good news is it's, it may sound a bit grim, but the truth is it's a massive opportunity for writers, for new writers especially, because it's a level playing field. If you get your book up there and it's a good book, and you get people reviewing the book and they're saying it's a good book, the next thing you know, you're drawing attention to your book, which is visibility. And the more visibility a book has, the better it fares as it moves through its life. And one of the interesting good things is that you can start promoting a book anytime. The internet is eternal. It's not like a bookstore where you only have 30 days to sell a book or 60 days. It's there for as long as it can be there physically, technically. And that means that if you start promoting it a year after it comes out, that the promotion can work just as well as if it worked on the first week it came out. So that gives you a sort of calming hopefulness, never too late to try to get attention to your book. Story Merchant Books for years struggled with the same problems that everyone is struggling to. How do we make this book stand out? And we finally ran into a guy who's now our partner. We've started a new division, which is a book marketing division, who has figured out the algorithm by which Amazon operates. Just to give you an example of algorithmic thinking, Amazon puts out, we know, because we work closely with them, that when a book gets 30 reviews, it somehow slips into another part of the machine, and Amazon's computer starts paying attention to it, more attention than it did at the beginning. And when that grows to 100 reviews, again, it moves to another part of the algorithm. And as the reviews grow, the visibility of the book grows. Now, what I mean by visibility, for example, is that you get these ads in the email all the time that ask you if you're interested in a particular book, and you'll see that it's compared to, say, 4 other books. And those comparison books are part of the Amazon algorithm. And the way you get into that comparison status is by reviews of your book. and visibility of your books, articles about your book, reviews about your book, and suddenly your book is being compared to other books they're promoting. And then you get to another level where they're actually sending emails out about your book, comparing it to other books, as opposed to some other book and having your book as one of the comparison books. So it's very complicated. And our new partner, Sam, his name is Sam Bregren, has figured out how it all works. And one of the services that we offer in Story Merchant Books Marketing is a bestseller service. In the last few months, I think 5 of our books have now been Amazon bestsellers, and he's able to get them into that status because of he understands what it takes for Amazon to start noticing it. And so that gives, for the first time, kind of in history, it gives writers a chance to control the marketing fate of their books more than they ever could have in the past. Certainly, they have no control over it when it goes to a major publisher, like a traditional publisher. And as several people here know very well from their own books, including mine, I've been published by top publishers from Random House to W. Norton to Holt to HarperCollins, et cetera. And I can tell you that their normal ability to market a book is almost nil. And they have their own reasons. I've been selling books to these publishers for years, and I see their problems. Their problems are that if you look at the statistics, which is all the new publishers do, is look at statistics, that something like 4% of their titles carry their entire slate. In other words, 94% or whatever are failures from their point of view, and the other 4% are the bestsellers that we all know. And that's why they pay the bestsellers huge amounts of money, because they carry the rest of their list. And this got compounded about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, when, for going from 48 major publishers, which we used to deal with, companies like Crown, Scribner's, Ballantine, Bantam, Doubleday, Norton, you could list them all. And they all exist still, but they're all owned by 4 major publishers. And those 4, Bertelsmann, Viacom, et cetera, own all the other imprints that existed before. Now, how that impacted me and led me to start Story Merchant Books was that I was selling books to Hollywood, and I was, having at least 10 books, at least 10 books and a year. And suddenly that number trickled down to just a few, because these big publishers had a policy. If one imprint like Scribner's wanted to buy a book, and so did 3 other imprints at the same major company, they had a rule they couldn't compete with each other, and that they had to decide which of the imprints would make an offer. And that means that the auctions I used to have regularly drastically shrunk down, and blah, blah, blah. So it changed the whole market. And I thought, if I can put together a book, and I had been able to do that since I was a professor years ago and had been working with publishers for, by that time, 20 years, I wonder if the Hollywood people would care that it wasn't published by Random House or Simon & Schuster. And in fact, I discovered quickly when I made my first few Story Merchant sales to Hollywood that they didn't care. They just cared that the book was good and exciting and all the things a book is supposed to be, and that it looked like a book and walked like a book and talked like a book. They didn't care about the imprint. And so that made me start Story Merchant Books as direct publishing to give writers the maximum opportunity to get in front of not only the world through Amazon, uh, but also through, directly to Hollywood. And in the years since then, which have been maybe over 10 years at least, um, everything has gotten more complicated. Everything has continued changing virtually every day. And we somehow have rolled with the punches and kept it going. And one of our books has now got a major director attached and a major actor as it moves toward production. And we have several others, many others in development after we publish them through Story Merchant Books. So what can you do to promote your book? Um, you can do ads on Amazon. You can create Facebook pages and campaigns. You can do LinkedIn campaigns. You can use Instagram and other social media to put excerpts from your book. Some of my clients, including a couple who are here today, Robert Rivenbark, for example, his book is The Cloud, that have used visuals in that area. And others, like Dr. Dave Davis, I noticed recently started having Instagram chats about dilemmas he's run into as a writer on his various books, and how he got around the dilemma. And so that's all good because it's all visibility. But people like to know what they're buying. And exposure is, how many exposures a book has determines its visibility. Uh, people people wonder what that means, but I always give the example like in the days where everybody was reading slick magazines, the magazines that cost, $5 in those days, now $10, and had gorgeous black, color all the way through. You see ads for Bacardi and Hermes and uh, Jaguar, full page ads in these magazines, which cost tens of thousands of dollars. And I wonder how many Jaguars they sold because of that ad in that particular issue. But the ad appears in every issue. And that's because exposure and visibility is what runs the marketing business. It's getting people to recognize something because they've seen it before. So those ads are all kind of lost leaders for them because they know that one day when you want to buy a car, one of the images in your mind is going to be Jaguar because you've seen the ad so many times all your life. And when you're buying a scarf and you see it's Hermes, that's a rubber stamp on your decision to buy it because you've seen it so many times. So they say that it takes 4 to 5 exposures to get your brain to want to buy that particular product. And all these marketing ideas we have, all are based on giving you one or more of those exposures. And there's no substitute for your own brain power, for what you can do to get out of the box. Sometimes if you're writing in a field like Diane's, which is about the history of the Mongols and the Khans, the great Khans, starting with Genghis Khan, it's because she has access to, from her years of doing this, she has access to interviews, to speeches, to appearing in places where she's invited to appear. And every time she does that, she's building her book's brands. And that's the way to do it. It's by being serious. Like I don't hear as often as I used to from writers saying, "I'm sorry, I'm just a writer. I'm not a salesman. I'm not into the marketing." And unfortunately, that is like a doomsday statement. You have to snap out of it and realize that you are responsible. You wrote this book, and you're responsible for getting it into the world. It's not like you would have a child and not be willing to, take it out to dinner or take it to the playground and all of that and say, I'm not into that. I'm just into giving birth. Um, that does not work in the world of publishing today. As charming and kind of antique and quaint as it might seem, you have to get out there and do it, take responsibility. And so, somebody just responded, Phil, can everyone see these notes or just
No.
me? Okay. Um,
Yeah, we can see the.
say, yeah, he was saying 50 marketing is 50% of the deal. Well, that is a kind of philosophical way to put it, but the hard-nosed way of putting it is marketing is 90% of the deal. Um, because there are a lot of great ideas in human history, and I'm an avid scholar of history, that never made it to the public's attention. Or
That's true.
like Leonardo's flying machines uh, barely got noticed until we're now surrounded by the very things that he designed on paper and sometimes made models of. But he wasn't marketing that. He was marketing his painting and his architecture, and that's where he focused it. So you have to get your head around doing it. And there are two ways to do it, which is to do it yourself and to pay somebody to do it who knows what they're doing. And as I was saying, for years, Story Merchant Books did not have a partner like we now have who knew what they were doing. Like you, we were doing marketing by trial and error. Um, and that trial and error often was ended in error and disappointment, which is exactly what happened, by the way, with the traditional publishers when they try to market. Everybody goes through the same thing. But with our new partner, we've been able to have a number of number one bestsellers and hoping to have, another 10 in the next 12 months as we move things along. And what that does for you is kind of the internet equivalent of having a New York Times bestseller, because that's the phrase that in the publishing world that I used to inhabit before all this complicated world happened. And that was the buzzword that you used. And I learned along the way that people could pay to get their book into New York Times bestseller status. It took something like $100,000 to do that. And they had to sell something like 50 to 100,000 books. And we learned, the more we delved into it, the more we learned there were just a few bookstores in New York, primarily, where you could manipulate when you paid the fee, the 100,000 to get it done. These stores were the ones that the Times bestsellers, and they were identified over the years, and they still are. And they could be, you could figure out how to do it. Like going in and buying 10 books on one day did not move the needle. You had to do it in a certain way over a certain period of time, blah, blah, blah. And so our Amazon bestseller offer, which is one of the packages that we offer, um, gets you that right to say that on the front of your book. And we've had 20 New York Times bestsellers as a company over the years, but now we're happy to see that we have Amazon bestsellers, including a book of mine, which was called Mr. Irrelevant, the 50 Irrelevants Who Changed the World. And
I like that.
so we're here to tell you that you need to wrap your head around it one way or the other, and do something. Like there used to be a book that this title I always forget, but it's something like 101 ways, 1,001 ways to market your book, and that book was like a Bible to me. I used to have it at my desk side, and I would just determine I would do one thing a day. I would open it up and, like the Bible pointing to a passage, just let my finger lead me to one and then do it that day. Because, I used to be a professor of classics, and I never forgot the first great writer in the West before Homer was called Hesiod. Hesiod wrote an almanac. He was a farmer,
Yeah.
and in his almanac, he says to me this incredibly memorable thing. He said, "If you put little over on top of the little, soon it becomes a lot." And he gave the example of if you have to move a pile of manure from one side of the barn to the other, uh, it looks like an overwhelming job. But if you just tell yourself, I'm going to do one shovel a day, before you know it, within a measurable time level, you've moved the whole pile. And that's a crazy analogy for what we're talking about. But I'm just saying, marketing is something you shouldn't let it intimidate you, like this huge mountain, staring down at you. You should just tackle it, figure out a way to divide it into small units that are manageable, and then relentlessly continue doing those units so you don't even have to remotivate yourself every day. You just do this one thing relentlessly. And so you need to come up with a marketing plan, one that you can manage yourself or one that you can afford, and start implementing it. And in the case of Amazon ads, for example, this is one measurable thing because you can see the effect that your ads are having on Amazon. Um, and when it comes to others, you can't measure them directly. But when I send a book over to a Hollywood buyer, it certainly helps. Like one of the books that we published last year is now in front of a bunch of buyers, and it says right on the cover, #1 Amazon bestseller, which gets them to read it, even though they never heard of it. That alone makes the book visible. Um, so that's kind of my overall view of things, and we offer those services. Uh, if you're interested in them, Charlotte's going to put, my email address up so you can let us know that, and we can respond to you with, sending you our menu and discussing it with you if you're interested. And then we go from there. And then I thought we could devote the rest of today's session to questions, answering your questions, and Charlotte can MC that.
Yeah. So, if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and use the raise hand feature. Yeah, if you just click on your name, you should be able to see it come up as an option. And then, yeah, I will go ahead and pick questions. But I just see Phil's question. Phil, did you want to talk a bit more about your question, or did you want to?
Sure, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I published my book, which is a boyhood memoir, first in a series about a year ago, and it's doing pretty well, pretty well. It's about 700, 800 copies sold so far, and to your point, Ken, the majority of those are Amazon. Um, but I have tried a number of different things, Facebook ad campaign, etc., and those tend, for me anyway, to be kind of a break even. But I'm really interested in this bestseller program or services that you've had, and without you don't have to go too far into it at this point, but could you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Well, Bob Rivenbark is on, and
Yes.
he's one of our favorite clients whose book, The Cloud, is we're now starting to make a teaser for it. Um, Major sci-fi work about the future that we're heading into and the impact of cyber storytelling on the shaping of the future. So, and Bob has gone through this program, and his book was #1 bestseller, which is helping us market it to Hollywood. So, Bob, do you want to explain?
Yes, I'd be most happy to. Ken and I met several years ago. We've been working, I think it's, gosh, almost 5 years now. We've been working together ever since. Uh, it, it was one of the great experiences of my life. Ken is a true Renaissance man on so many different levels. But in the case of my book, the novel, it's a speculative fiction novel set in the 22nd century. And I signed up for the bestseller program that Ken and his partner are doing. And The Cloud is now a #1 international bestseller. And as Ken mentioned, it's in development as both a feature film and a video game. And the experience of doing this is phenomenal. I mean, when you sign up for the bestseller program, it's with the understanding that Ken and his partner are going to be able to massage the Amazon algorithms in such a way that they will guarantee that they take you to #1 bestseller. And that is both in the Kindle version and in the paperback print version. And one of the ways they do this is, and I learned this only through working with Ken and his partner, is that no matter what genre you're writing in, whether it's straight up literary fiction, science fiction, speculative fiction, historical fiction, young adult fiction, you name it, there are as many as 3 to 4 dozen subcategories under each of those. I'll just use my book as an example. Under science fiction, I believe there are 37 subcategories. And so what Ken and his partner and his partner's team did was they put the book through the each of these algorithms, all 37 of them, one after the other. And they finally landed on the one that was getting the response they wanted, and they stuck with it. And the book shot up to #1. I mean, it took about 3 months to sort through all of those 37 categories, but the net result was it was it was a #1 bestseller in the Kindle version, and in the paperback version, it became a #1 international bestseller. And both of those labels are on the front of the book now. And you know, the reviews have poured in, fantastic reviews. It really holds up. When Ken said earlier that you get quality editing when you work through him, it's true. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Bill.
You bet.
Hope that answered the question.
Thank you.
Next question.
Yeah, so I got a question from Richard. I don't know if you wanted to say it out loud or if you wanted me to say the question, but he
Sure,
had a
no,
question
I don't
about
mind that.
audiobooks.
Hey Ken, how you doing?
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing well. Um, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the importance in kind of your opinion about having the book as an audio, available in audio. A lot of my like potential audience, younger people, I've had friends actually who say, "Hey, I'd love to read your book, but I won't read it. I'd rather listen to it." And so I just kind of want to get a feel for you of the importance of having an audio version, and is it something you see that evolves after publishing? In print or electronic first? What kind of your opinion about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Primarily because I love audiobooks. I listen to endless audiobooks, one after the other. And it's my favorite way to read a book other than in manuscript form. And we have not yet had an audio option, but we're working on getting it by the end of this year. And it's a great idea because a lot of people do the same thing. If you're commuting, an audiobook is better to listen to than many podcasts. And if you're, as going for a walk, what motivates me to go for a walk is I'm listening to a great book and I can listen to it without being disturbed, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't have to persuade me about audiobooks. we're just trying to find an economical way of getting them done as part of the options that we offer our authors. And we've had several uh, near misses, but we're going to nail it down by the end of this year. But I'm all 100% for audiobooks.
Me too.
Also, and I just want to give a shout out to working with your team, Ken Charlotte in particular has just been wonderful, and Sam Bregman too. I'm really excited to get the marketing going with him, but it's really so collaborative and so positive. So I just want to thank you for that experience so far. It's been great.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, I saw Barbara had a couple questions. Did you want to speak a little bit on them? I know there were a bunch of them.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm working in the new adult genre, and I was wondering what the marketing potential was for that. And I also wondered if what the cover requirements were for Amazon, if it was important to have a design that captured the interest of the new adult or the young adult.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Cover design is crucial. It's one of the number one marketing things that are done. Like when the cover is designed, you're on the way to getting the book published. And if the cover is attractive, so we spend a lot of time we spend a lot of time over the cover. We designed, of course, the cover, and we do it in consultation with marketing people and, of course, the author. And sometimes we change the color of an original design, as we've done several times in the last couple of months, because the cover needs to pop out and catch your eye and leave an impression there, because that's the first step in reading a book is looking at the cover. And in the old days when books were only in bookstores, you looked at the cover, and if the cover got your eye, you then turned it over and read the marketing pitch on the back of it, and then only then do you open the book up and just read a page or so to see if the writing is okay. But it starts with the cover, so that you're on the right track by thinking about the cover. And we of course have our own designers who have been doing marketable covers for a while. And the cover is a strange animal. It's not meant to tell the whole story of the book. Its only goal is to catch the reader's attention long enough to get the reader to buy the book. So when I have an author saying, well, but her hair isn't really that shade of red, it's really darker, and like, okay, but that's not important. We went back and forth with one romance writer who we love about the three figures on the cover. And, this whole idea of designing a cover for especially a romance book is an ancient algorithm itself. This is how I got into publishing to begin with. It's a crazy story. I was a professor teaching, several courses a term. And one year, one of my courses was publishing techniques. And at the same term, during that same term, I was teaching the rules of courtly love. Andreas Capellanus was a chaplain in the court of Marie de Champagne, and he wrote the rules of courtly love and explained, here's what makes a story courtly love. And I was listening to the publisher describe the cover of a romance novel and how they designed them, and I realized they were being taken directly from Andreas Capellanus's list. The male, and sorry for political incorrectness here, but in a romance novel cover, the male his head has to be above the female's. They have to be looking into each other's eyes. They have to. There has to be either a moon or a sun in the background, and so on. And the more he talked about these covers, he was working with Fabio of this model that they used for many of his covers. I realized this is courtly love. That's from the 14th century. That was, hundreds of years ago, and the same formulas were being followed. And this led me to my series of movies called Shades of Love, which I produced as I left the academic world, 16 movies from Warner Brothers. And they followed the rules of courtly love, etc. And so nothing is more important than the formula. And they knew this a long time ago. They knew that what got people's attention and full attention was certain things. And of course, in today's world, there are all kinds of variations on that. And, it's all become much more universul and not as patriarchal as it was back in those days. But I learned that the women who read romance novels read an average of 12 of them a month. So I thought, what if we could have movies, video movies that based on that formula and sell them at the grocery store and the drugstores where women could easily acquire them. And that's what we ended up doing. We made 16 of them. They all had color titles like Echoes in Crimson, The Rose Cafe, Make Mine Chartreuse, Lilac Dreams, and so on. You can see them on the internet to this day, and they were distributed around the world, and they were easy to get, the books. So that's, your attention to the cover is very well placed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck. I just want to mention, now that we've only got a few minutes left, our next webinar is going to be a paid webinar, and it's called Captains of Industry, and it's based on a new service that Bob Rivenbark and I have created that's going to help people write their life stories as legacies for their family. And they may or may not be published, probably not. They're just to give to the family. And if anyone knows anyone who might be interested, Charlotte's going to post the sign-up information so you can take a look at it.
Yeah.
Send it to your friends.
Yeah, I posted a link. We have a webinar registration link that's being developed. So keep an eye out for the newsletter. But we currently have a $30 off discount for the webinar right now, since it is, a paid one that is going more into our new program. And it's very specific, but we're going to have a whole newsletter come out in the next day or so, describing it in more detail. But we wanted to announce it formally now. But yeah.
Great. So any other questions that we can answer while we still have a minute?
Yeah, I saw that Catherine, I believe, had a question or two.
Hi. Ken, do you think it's valuable to
Who is this talking?
Catherine Clinch?
Oh, hi, Catherine.
And my messy office behind, that's why I've had the camera off. Do you think it's valuable to do sound design along with your audiobook, adding in a little bit of music, a little bit of sound design, kind of like a hybrid between that and a podcast?
On an audiobook?
Yeah.
That's a very personal, kind of a personal situation, because I'm very annoyed by sound design when I listen to an audiobook that has it.
Me too.
I'm just annoyed by the sound. Like, I love Eckhart Tolle, and I read his books, but I hate the little bell that he separates chapters with, because it just feels so hokey to me. But I'm sure other people love it. So, I mean, honestly, I can't give you a definitive answer. I suggest that you look at Chat GPT and ask Chat GPT what it thinks of it. Okay. Because I'm sure it's the new trend, and I heard many books that have it. I just don't feel like it adds anything to the experience, in my opinion. But look at me. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I'm not 25 years old, and that's the people you should really ask is younger people to
Okay.
see like what they think of it. Charlotte, what do you think, for example, of sound enhanced audiobooks?
Very cool. We worked with a science fiction author, Rick Mordecon, and he did not that, but he did like a book trailer, and did like some work with AI to kind of enhance the book and bring it to life. And a lot of it, the cool parts were the sound. So I think it's anything to kind of immerse the audience into your world in the marketing is very good because people want to get a taste of that. Um, and yeah, people love creativity, and that sounds extremely creative and very cool, especially because podcasts are so big right now. People love it. So yeah, very good idea.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, so let me see. I believe, let's see. Yeah, Kevin, I don't know if you still had a question, but we can do that and then we can wrap up.
There I am. Okay, sorry, I had to take myself off mic. How you doing,
Yeah.
doctor? I know this particular session was about books and whatnot, and as a filmmaker slash screenwriter, I'm assuming the same techniques don't apply. However, besides submitting like a screenplay to festivals, querying with agents and whatnot, and even getting an evaluation from the blacklist. Um, all those things are what is going to help myself in particular propel my script forward. What other avenues are there? What other steps could I take and whatnot to throw myself into the fire, saying I'm here, I'm ready to do this and whatnot.
You mean for screenplays?
For screenplays, for filmmakers, but mainly screenplays.
Well, there's several routes you can take. One of them is to make your own short film, and make it easy to see so you can send links to it to people. Recently, I saw, a client send me several of his short films, and I, I, I didn't relate to any of them. And he asked me point blank, what I thought, and I gave him a politely accurate answer that they weren't appealing to everybody. So I'm one of those people who I'm not interested in the esoteric other than, on some philosophical basis. I'm interested in the commercial world of communication. And to me, writing is about communicating. It's about offering something that everyone can relate to, whether because of the humor in it or the life experience in it, or whether it's because it's portraying a universal situation that affects everybody. And, that's to me the focus of communicating. So if you can do that in a short film that you create yourself, that's great. That's one thing you can do. If you can, uh, enter a meaningful contest, like, there are a few. The Nichols, for example, is the one that we filmmakers go to. Uh, every year we see what screenplays have placed in the Nichols, and every town reads the top ones. And I once represented one and couldn't sell it, even though it was an incredible concept and well-written script. But we convinced the author to turn it into a novel, a young adult novel, and then sold it at auction in New York, and then sold it at auction in Hollywood based on that. So the Nichols we paid attention to because it was the Nichols. And, the Austin Film Festival is another example. But many people ask me all the time about a film festival that I've never heard of, and, whether that's going to mean anything. And I guess the answer is, it doesn't hurt to say you placed at a film festival. But if the film festival is a notable one, like Austin or the Nichols, then that means something to Hollywood. If it's not notable, they're kind of thinking to themselves, so what? I'll read it. I've been a judge, unfortunately, or fortunately, in some of these film, situations. And I can tell you that in some major states, when they sent me the last 5 runner-ups to make a choice, I was appalled at how sometimes all 5 of them were sub basement level. And because they're set up the way they are, they have to make choices and do what they do. But I mean, I was just, when one particular one, which was Texas at one point, I just refused to make a choice. I go, these are all so bad they shouldn't be judged. And fortunately, they had other judges, so they could get through that impasse. But so, what does that tell you? It tells me I am a very I am not cynical. I'm a huge enthusiast, but I am extremely practical. And my colleagues in the business are worse than I am. I mean, they won't give you more than 2 pages, whereas I will read the first 20 pages because I love writers and I'm supporting writers all my life. But so I think that's another way, though, to get attention is through a meaningful festival. And so you can also ask ChatGPT this question, and it'll give you a bunch of good ideas. Not against AI. I am convinced that as we dealt with the internet in our lifetimes, and as we dealt with Amazon, and as we, dealing with all the stuff that we deal with, we have to deal with AI, and those who use it to their advantage are going to be ahead of those who decide they hate it and so on. Because your decision to hate it and to never use it is not a writer's decision. It's some kind of existential decision that you have a right to make, but it doesn't really advance your career. And it won't make it go away, by the way. So my suggestion is that you get into it and see how it can help you.
Oh, for proofreading, especially.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
thank you guys for coming today. Really appreciate it. And Charlotte will let you know when the next one is. There'll be another free one next month, and we'll go from there. Charlotte, anything else to say?
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for coming. Sorry, let me. Yeah, so yeah, we will let you know when the next free it webinar is, but there'll also be a new email about the Captains of Industry webinar as well. It should be coming, I believe, either April 24th, I believe, or somewhere in late April. But yeah, in May we'll probably have a similar time and place with another topic. But we enjoy having these with you. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you,
Thank you
Charlotte,
for having
for being
us.
so amazing.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Is it possible for me to send you my screenplay?